Denton Community Television, operated by the Mayborn School of Journalism, the University of North Texas.
Hi, I'm Mike Miller. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks so much for watching. My guest today is a mathematician and an artist, and I'm honored to have John Magee here today. Appreciate you coming down. And you go by Sid as your
nickname.
Name on your for your
Sidicus
art.
Maximus is the artistic persona that I use with my fractal art.
How did you come up with that?
Actually, it started originally in high school. We had to come up with a Roman legionnaire name just as an assignment.
Yeah.
And Maximus was mine, and I liked it, and it stuck. And then Sid just got tacked on later as something I enjoyed, and it's kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And I like it. It's something just to go by. Everybody's named John, you know.
Max was your grandfather?
My grandfather's named Max, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So you've been involved with fractal art for a number of years, and
Yeah, I've been doing fractal art for 4 or 5 years now, and I've been interested in it for 5 or 6 years. Actually, the death of Benoit Mandelbrot, who kind of wrote the book on fractals. I heard about it, and then I went and bought the book, and just reading it and seeing the images on the inside got me excited about it. And then researching it online, I discovered some programs where you can create really beautiful things. And it just happened. And I'm not technically a mathematician, I haven't got a degree, but I'm a math hobbyist.
yeah, you like math. You're
I
fascinated
enjoy
with
it.
mathematics.
I like doing it. I'm not always the best at it, but it's fun. I like the solving problems and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm also a computer programmer by profession. So, yeah.
So you just have mathematical aptitude, and
Yeah, it's just something I enjoy.
yeah.
Find fascinating the intricacies of the zeta functions and all that craziness. And there's actually money involved too. There's a $1 million prize if you can prove the zeta function's true, which is interesting. The Riemann zeta function. Anyway.
What does that mean?
Basically it's like a summing of all the numbers, and has to do with zeros and prime numbers, and it's really complicated, and nobody's for the last 100 years hasn't been able to solve or prove that it's true. We're pretty sure that it's true, but we haven't proved that it's true. And so there's a lot of people online talking about it, you know.
Yeah.
So you hear about it in the math world.
What were some of the very first ones that you made?
Some of the very first ones that I made were kind of like example number 3 that I gave you.
Oh, okay.
And it was just 2D, and you know, just using the numbers and just tweaking the numbers around to see what shapes pop out of it. And then once I found an interesting shape, like the one in example 3, then I went and took it into the 3D world and made example 4, which has a depth, and then made it look interesting with some of the other programs that I use.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it started off in 2D because most of them are, and that's originally what Benoit Mandelbrot and Julia Gaston, they were all doing two-dimensional fractals.
Two-dimensional, yeah.
And only recently has the three-dimensional fractals really started to emerge as computer technology becomes more efficient and faster and able to calculate some of the very large sums that has to go into that. So.
Like some of these, you've spent quite a few hours on some of these.
Yeah, like some of my renders took days for just one image.
Oh, really?
You know, and then I've done short videos and GIF images that have taken weeks to render. And I don't have the best computer in the world, but it's still an all right computer. One day I'd like to be able to afford to hire a render farm to do some of the really cool movies and stuff, like do a music video of some kind or something. That'd be neat.
You have quite a few fractals on your website.
Yeah, I have...
and if people Google Sid Maximus, that comes up?
Sidicus Maximus, yeah. You can get there. There's the DeviantArt page and a Redbubble page where I sell iPhone cases and iPad cases and things like that. And mainly, I just like the art, and if people like it, want to download, if they ask me, I'll give them the full image so they can put it on their backgrounds. It actually originally started with me wanting to make backgrounds that fit my computer.
Oh, really?
I had this really wide-angled computer with a really wide screen.
Oh, yeah.
But it was kind of short, so I was like, I want to make something that fits, that looks really cool.
Screensaver.
Yeah, a background. Kind of, and screensavers and whatnot. And that's just kind of, it evolved from there. And then, there's a community, an international community of people that love fractal art, because we're few and far between in any small setting, but around the world there's quite a few of us.
Yeah.
And they all of them look different. Everybody's fractals look different, and what people think is beautiful is different, and there's a lot of philosophy in it too, because some of these numbers are estimates and guesses. And one of the things that I've come up with when doing art is everything is beautiful from at least one perspective.
Yeah.
And it's just getting in there and trying to find that perspective that speaks to me, that makes me think, oh, I want to keep looking at it. I actually look at my own artwork and just like, wow, and so, so I make what I like, and that's all there's to it.
And you decide on the colors and can make the colors be in certain spots and things like that.
Sometimes that's actually one of the more difficult things, because
really?
you are adhering to the math, and I can pick any colors I want to use.
Yeah.
But getting them, sometimes I can't make a color appear at one spot. Sometimes I can, but a lot of times I try to make the colors reflect what's going on mathematically. Because how we do the colors is how fast the function goes off into infinity. And the faster that the iterated function grows depends on what color I use. If it grows really fast, it's red. And if it grows really slow, it's blue. And then every gradient in between is a fading from, like in some of these examples, yellow to blue to green and stuff. Yeah.
And you just have to type all of that like into a...
There's a programs that like Ultra Fractal for two-dimensional ones, and then Mandelbulb 3D, which is from fractalforums.com. It's free. Anybody can download it. It's not the easiest program to use, but once you kind of get the handle of it, and there's a lot of tutorials online on how to use it and at the website, and you can get in there and make really interesting, crazy shapes. And it's literally an infinite field, because that's what it's all about. The math goes to infinity.
I mean, like if you were just to start with a blank and just on the computer just draw some kind of line and then start applying these formula to it, it would...
There are ways you could do that. Like, say if you take a blank image and you drew a simple shape, you can use that as what's called an initiator, the beginning. And what the computer does is it takes that and it applies an algorithm to it.
Okay.
Something simple as like the Mandelbrot set, which is x squared plus c, or there's other more complicated, algorithms. And what the computer does, which we couldn't do before the computers, is do it millions and millions of times. And we're applying that function over and over and over and seeing what pops out. And sometimes it's just noise. You do it a million times and all you see is just random noise. But sometimes you get something that looks really cool. And then that's what I'm looking for when I go and I'm just tweaking the numbers a little bit this way, a little bit that way to see what happens. I mean, a lot of it's that discovery. I don't necessarily know what it's gonna exactly look like. I know what certain algorithms generally look like. Yeah. But you can zoom down into the shape and find completely new things that nobody's ever seen before. A lot of people like to find faces and stuff in them.
And is it like crystals?
It's crystal, it's crystal structures. Any shape in nature is probably going to be more fractal than, because you don't see perfect cubes. You don't see perfect spheres. You see roughness. And the fractal geometry is a description of the roughness of stuff.
Just the naturalness of
the
things.
Natural stuff. And it came, one of the original problems it solved was determining the surface area of a coastline. Say if you had a mile yardstick and you went around the coastline of England, you're going to get a number. But if you took a foot yardstick and you go around the coastline of England, you're going to get another number, and it is guaranteed to be bigger than the one before it. And if you keep getting smaller, that number is going to keep getting bigger,
bigger
to
and bigger.
infinity.
Yeah.
And we kind of can recognize that the surface area of something is infinite. You know, like a branching tree. You know, that's a surface area that you can't. The closer you look at it, it looks just similar to the big tree.
Yeah.
You know, the one branch looks similar to a big tree. Same as a river from space looks like a little tributary.
Yeah.
And then they're self-similar.
Yeah.
And that's that mathematical formulas come from some of this complex math, using the square root of -1 and the complex plane and things like that. Yeah.
What do you have in example 1?
Example 1 is Julia Gaston, who was a mathematician during World War I. He actually got his nose blown off in the trenches of World War I.
Boy.
And he had a leather strap on his face
Yeah.
to cover it up. And then he went and he became a mathematician, and he would go on and on about these beautiful numbers, these beautiful equations and people thought he was nuts. And like this, on the cover of Benoit Mandelbrot's book, which is a Julia fractal, that's kind of similar to the example 1 that I have. It's just, they call them dragons because they're
Yeah.
not quite defined, and you can zoom in and they keep going into infinity. But everybody thought he was kind of crazy. But then when Benoit Mandelbrot in the 60s used computers to render them for the first time, color them and render them, then people were like, oh, these are awesome. And I've talked to a lot of people that in the heyday in the 60s, a lot of people really love this art form. But the cool thing about today's time is that we can now do the 3D stuff.
Yeah.
The computers are capable of rendering things that we couldn't even imagine before.
Now, is it kind of like holograms? Or what are those exactly? How do they? That's kind of a 3D-ish effect.
Yeah, holograms are just is basically a three-dimensional projection.
Yeah.
That would be neat to see one of my artwork as a hologram. So you
Yeah.
can, like almost touch it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these things you want to touch them because they look like they have surface. And actually that's what I try to go for. I have a few newer ones that I'm working on that look like wood, and but yet have defined patterns to them. And I always like it when someone says, "Oh, I want to touch that." When they see it, that means I did a good job, of making it look like a real surface.
Yeah.
Because the math describes real surfaces.
Yeah.
And but then some of mine, which can be kind of really out there. This one I used a NASA photo, and this is called "The Voyage of the Pulce Pula," the pretty girl.
Yeah.
I made this for another fractal artist friend of mine, just as something fun. And you can merge them together. And it's not just artwork that the fractals are involved in. Most people remember back in the 90s, everybody's cell phone had a little bitty antenna on the top of them.
Yeah.
Well, they discovered that if you take an antenna and you bend it, and then you bend it again, and you bend it again, and you bend it again, it can actually pick up multiple frequencies with one antenna. And then they became these fractal antennas that are in everybody's cell phone now, but you don't see it. It doesn't have to stick out because it can be smaller.
So small.
And that's one of the practical applications of fractal math.
Well, that is amazing, and I thought these were so interesting too.
Yeah.
With the.
And this one is what's called an iterated function. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily using the complex plane like some of my other more crazy shapes.
Yeah.
It's basically taking a circles and just iterating it, doing the same function over and over again with, a predetermined, move over to the right, make it a little smaller, do it again. Mm-hmm. Move over to the right, make it a little smaller, do it again. But if you did it millions and millions of times, you end up with this crazy rippling shape. This one's called a ripple in time and space.
Like how many hours have you spent putting that together?
That one is not a too terribly complex one, but it's hard to tell because I was playing with the shape for a while.
Yeah.
And then when you render it, then it could take, an hour or 2 days.
Yeah.
Depending on the complex of the shape. Some of them can be very complex and take a long time.
These do seem to have a texture, and it almost reminds me of taffy or something like that.
Yeah, I like these because it looks like something that's being twisted and pulled, and then
like it's soft.
Right, and and getting the lighting and the colors to look like that. This one's one of my favorite ones. I actually just sold one of these.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and one of the prints, and I like it. And actually, if you look, it kind of looks like it has a little cracked pattern to it, like it was like a texture to it. Mm-hmm. And I did that on accident.
Oh, really?
I applied a different fractals bitmap to that one in a program called GIMP, which is like Photoshop. And I didn't even mean to, but it looked neat.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, we'll save that.
Yeah,
that looks
really.
cool.
Yeah.
And that one, I've gotten a lot of people like that one. So it's art is the utilization of an accident, as my father used to say.
Yeah.
Or still does.
That's for sure. Mm-hmm. That's part of the creative process.
This one's an interesting one.
I like that.
The original shape wasn't very interesting to me because you couldn't really tell all the detail.
Yeah.
But then when I got it into Photoshop and started using messing with the threshold, I found that you can make it kind of look where you can see all this detail, and it popped out pretty neat. I mean, I don't know.
Did that take more hours to do one like that?
This one, to render that one because of its complexity, probably the original image took probably overnight, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. Overnight to render. I usually don't like to have mine go more than a day.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the computer can crash.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, you just waste your time. Mm-hmm. Like this one, when it came out, I didn't like it. But then when I started manipulating it with other image manipulation programs, like I said, I use GIMP, which is like Photoshop, but it's free, which I like. I got this thing to pop out of it. And I've actually, there's a few little sections I've actually zoomed in on and made other images out of from this base one.
Yeah, I can see how you could do that.
Yeah.
There's so many things you see in here.
Yeah, some of these
leaves
that I have.
Leaves and faces.
Faces, leaves, like there's a butterfly.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of them. And I've got a few other ones that are like that, where all these, you can see around the dots on the edges, the little bitty, looks like little mouses to me. I don't know. Everybody sees something different. It's like a Rorschach test.
Yeah.
You look at it and you see it and you think, hey, well, I see this, and everybody I show says something different.
Yeah, that's true. It's something within their own perception that they're seeing, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of these you print them on other larger formats?
Right now I'm working on doing larger formatting because I do think that these look the best in large, go big.
This has so many great details in it.
Exactly, and
that
it's hard to tell.
On a wall. Yeah.
And actually, you mentioned wall. I'm working with this company that does wallpaper, and I'm looking for people that want to put a piece of art all the way across a wall, have something that from this side to this side be completely different but yet the same, and I can do it in any color. What's your favorite two colors? Like me and green, I could do green and white, and make the fractal pattern go all across the whole wall, and be completely unique. No other wall, and then I can actually go in there and say I'm going to destroy the original numbers that I use so that I can't even reproduce it.
Oh, really?
And it would be almost impossible for someone else to reproduce it because
they'd never get
they'd
there.
have to guess a number this big. You're 4 numbers this big, it's fun. It's fun to create unique things that nobody else can quite create. They can replicate it similarly. But what's also neat is if I do save those numbers, I can give you a little bitty text thing about, maybe 10 lines long. You can open up Mandelbulb 3D, which you can download off fractalforums.com for free, open it up, and pop that image right in there. And then you can actually go in and look at that fractal and change the shape. They call it tweaking on the internet. Mm-hmm. They take an image, a fractal, and someone will go in there and tweak it to make it look cooler. Yeah. And they have competitions online to see who can take this algorithm and make it look the best.
Yeah.
I won one once.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good.
It was pretty neat. I really liked that one.
Yeah. When was that?
That was actually 2 years ago when I was really doing a lot of fractals.
Yeah.
And then I got a job, a nice, salaried position, and I worked all the time and I didn't have much time for fractals, which made me sad. So now I'm back into fractals, doing it a lot more. I've been actually making a new one every day.
Yeah.
For the last 2 weeks, I've made a new one every day.
That's good.
And some of them aren't great, but some of them I think are really, really
And then you continue to tweak them more or less.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good to not look at it for a few days and then go back. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And actually, I think stopping for a while and then coming back, I was able to create more.
Yeah, you're more creative when you see it fresh again. Yeah.
I've learned a few things. I got a little older, I think, hopefully. But yeah.
This is interesting too.
Yeah, I made this one for
It's almost
a
like
band.
landing on the moon or something.
Yeah, and they used it for a flyer. They had like the DeMigs and dates on it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But it was all right, and I like it because I like star shapes, and I like the way this like antenna thing looks like it's coming out.
Yeah.
But yet you can't really quite tell, is this really high up or is it right next to it? And the answer actually is neither one of those.
Neither
things.
one, yeah.
One of the harder things to really wrap your head around, or at least for me, is that these shapes are what's considered plane filling shapes, meaning they fill the entire space. But I set a threshold saying if it's smaller than a certain amount, don't render it. And that's where the negative space, where the everything that you don't see.
The darkness on the edge.
The darkness, well actually, like this ring, it doesn't look like it's connected. It doesn't look like it's connected to this, but it is. Everything is connected. And sometimes you can't say that because the connections are so small that the renderer doesn't render it.
Well, there's like a line through there, like a...
You
like
do see one there, yeah? But it doesn't look like it touches any of those rings.
No.
But it does.
Yeah.
You just can't see that because it's such a small little connection. And there's the philosophy again. We're all connected, even though you can't perceive it, at the smallest level.
Yeah.
And you know how, have you ever heard of, pi? 3.149, and it just goes on forever and ever and never stops. And there's the philosophy that, somewhere down that line is your social security number, right there in a row. You'll find it if you go far enough. And so, the philosophy is the Mandelbrot set. If you zoomed in far enough, you'd find your face looking back up at it. Now, is that true? I don't know, but it sounds fun. Fun to think about.
It is amazing, all the applications of math and all the inherent meaning.
And how you can explain things mathematically, and how you can see how very simple things can lead to extremely complex things. Like the Mandelbrot set, which is, in my opinion, the most complicated thing in the universe.
Really?
It's x squared plus c. And that's it. That's the equation. It's not...
And all of this art is derived from that formula?
Yes. Using the complex number in junction with other things, and that concept of iteration, of taking the end result and plugging it back into and doing it again from the end result. And that iteration process is the basis of it. Yep.
It just forms like a hook and then another, and then it's just...
Yeah. Doing the same thing over and over again and getting different results.
Yeah, slightly different each time.
Yeah, there's what's called self-similarity.
Oh, really?
It's like if you look at a branch of a tree, it looks similar to the whole tree.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the same, but it has similar properties. And that self-similarity is a recurrence in all fractals, all true fractals.
So this formula kind of applies to a tree also in a way?
It can, yeah. And branching, it's the topology of the infinite. If you did it to infinity, what would it kind of look like? And I've actually recently been doing I've been trying to get more trees. Trees are interesting when in the fractals. I don't have any examples of trees here, but some of my newer stuff has branch and then a branch and then a branch and then a branch.
Now, are there? We talked about which examples so far?
We've talked about one, which is the Julia fractal, and it's one of the Julias, which, and then we talked about 3, which was one of my 2D ones.
Yeah.
And then 4 is the 3D example, and actually number 4, it was hosted at DeviantArt on their main page.
Oh, really?
And I got 4,000 hits in one day.
That's great.
Which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think it was going to be that big of a deal, but it was. And
which piece is that? Do you have it here?
no, I don't have that one printed because it's kind of bright, and I didn't. I haven't gotten that one printed yet.
But we have an example going.
But the number 4 example there.
And 2, did we talk about?
Which one was 2? I don't even remember now. But yeah, 2 was good too. Show 2, there it is. That one was the Mandelbrot set, I think.
That was the set.
I do believe that one now that I remember. It's the Mandelbrot set, which is that x squared plus c, and that's the most famous fractal. It's not on the cover of his book, but it's in here somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's the most famous one. It's actually a map of all the Julia fractals. Like if you take this fractal, and it's associated with a certain number, like say it's 0.7 and 0.9, those two numbers. If you mapped out all of the Julias and rendered it, it would look like the Mandelbrot set.
Really?
Yeah, which...
That would be impossible to do almost.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really understand it. If you go online, you can see a tutorial about it, and it'll explain it a little bit better than I can. But if you mapped them all out, it's literally a map of all the complex plane.
This is probably something that's going to really grow with just the proliferation of computers around the world.
Definitely. And our understanding of the mathematics behind it is growing literally right now. Like, there are people that are doing these, learning how to use complex math, and things called tetrations, which are like 3 to the 3 to the 3 to the 3, like going up into infinity.
Really?
Those are huge numbers.
Yeah.
But we're just now having computers and mathematicians that have figured out how to use those numbers in a useful way.
Yeah.
And that's even down to quantum mechanics, because those numbers can be very large and very complicated.
I'm sure.
And I'm not a quantum mechanics woo kind of guy. But I'm saying the math is coming up. And then, of course,
you studied gaming in college.
I did. I started computer gaming design, and just programming in general at NCTC, and I really liked it. It's fun. I like solving problems and mathematically, or just in general. Just coming up with something fun. And I also like playing games. Everybody likes playing games.
Yeah. And art is like games in ways.
It is. It can. Well, there's a lot of art in modern games. When it comes to either like I play card games.
Oh yeah.
And there's always art.
Yeah.
And you have video games, and there's always art. And then you even have, if you go back to originally, chess. There's art in chess. The carving of those pieces. When I was a little kid, I carved chess pieces.
Really?
With one of those Dremel tools. And cut myself, pretty bad, but it was fun, And the art and the math, and I think that's one of the great things about our country is that we promote both science, math, and art, and it gets that creative juices flowing,
and it's all intertwined, really.
Exactly, life imitating art, imitating math. This is what I like to call it. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming down to the studio
today been great fun.
and sharing this with our audience. And I wish you very good luck with this throughout the future. I
appreciate it. And I'm glad you do it, and I hope your audience really enjoys it. And if you guys go online and find some fractals, or if you have a question, you can seek me out, and I'll even show you how to make your own fractal if you'd like.
Well, thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks, Mike.
And thank you all for watching. We appreciate it, and you have a great day.